Hey there, it's Juju, and it's day 310 of this administration. And today is the 9th anniversary of my mom's passing. And I always think of her passing as Black Friday, because she died the day after Thanksgiving. So during this time, I always honor her. But this is the actual date, November 25th. So when I was going through my stuff earlier, I found that I'd written for her 75th birthday, which would have been 20 years ago. She would have been 95 at this point if she was still alive. I wrote her 75 memories for her 75th birthday. So I'm going to read those memories. So this is going to be a long video, and I have not reread these memories, so I'm going to be remembering them again, probably, since it's been 20 years since I've probably thought about this. So here are 75 memories for my mom. I remember the first time that I colored with the crayon and stayed within the lines. What an achievement it seemed. It was a picture of a leaf with berries. I gave it to you and you were so impressed. You put it up on the fridge and showed it to Daddy. It made me feel special and is one of my first memories of feeling like I could accomplish things. I remember being in the hospital for my surgery, how you gave me Poochie, or maybe it was Popeye. I had Poochie for many years, bringing him wherever I went, obviously a stuffed animal. That was probably the beginning of my stuffed animal collection. Was it Poochie or a teddy bear that was eventually decapitated when Mike hit Lisa with it? I think it was Teddy. I guess the fact that I don't remember shows that these traumas heal with time. I remember how you took care of us when we got sick. Staying home from school and getting to watch cartoons was a treat, especially when we were on the mend. You would make us soft-boiled eggs or chicken noodle soup and 7-Up or homemade milkshakes to drink. Taking our temperature and putting cool washcloths on our foreheads, the loving care, the feeling that we were in good hands and that we would get better. One thing you want as an adult is to have someone to take care of you when you are sick, to give you that loved feeling. I remember winters when it would snow. What a special feeling that was, listening to the radio, hoping St. Joe's would close. Getting a snow day was wonderful. Tromping out into the fields, the world looked different, blanketed in snow, the silence. I still love that silence today. We would build snowmen in the front yard and make snow angels. I remember coming in all wet and cold and putting the clothes in the bathtub. We would make snow ice cream and hot cocoa. I remember what a wonderful cook you were and are. In those days, we had dessert with every meal. Of course, you had to eat your zucchini first. Lots and lots of zucchini. I liked baking cookies and licking the beaters. Also making aggression cookies and getting our aggression out by pounding the dough. Helping make Wisconsin Delight and Nothing Cake. We had to pay for the desserts by all that time spent cracking and grinding walnuts and peeling apples and peaches. Girl Scout memories. The lake camping trips. Having you as a fearless GS leader. Earning badges. Baking pineapple upside down cake for second place in the brownie bake-off. Backyard campouts. Selling Girl Scout cookies and calendars, and hikes along the river. I remember going to mother-daughter luncheons put on by St. Joe's. At school, you were the lettuce lady on hamburger days. Everyone would say, "That's your mom? She's so nice." To this day, I can't have a hamburger without lettuce. Taking gymnastics and competing in the meets. All those cartwheels and walkovers in the backyard and in the house. Working on the balance beam Dad made for me. I remember learning to do a backbend, arching back and walking down the wall until I could do it on my own. My back hurts now just to think of it. I remember when you joined OA while we were growing up and lost all that weight. It was an inspiration, teaching us that change and self-transformation is possible. I remember how you would go for your annual retreat, one of the few things you did for yourself while we were growing up. That you would go to the convent and spend a weekend in prayer and meditation and silence and come back refreshed. All the pets you let us have. The guinea pigs, turtles, goldfish, rabbits, though they weren't really pets, were they? And then the cats, Sasha, Starsky and Hutch, Samantha, Bilbo, and then Sparky, of course. So many of my loves I have gotten from you. My love of dance. I never would have taken ballet or had that dream if you hadn't taken us to ballet performance of Sleeping Beauty at Shasta High when I was about 11. I remember watching that Bluebird dance and thinking, she's my age, and if she can do that, so can I. Going out during the intermission and hearing voices and laughter drifting out of the green room, thinking someday that's going to be me backstage. And it was. The ballet lessons, all that driving to classes, going to performances, working it out so we could clean the studio and Joalis's house to pay for the lessons when we could no longer afford them. Letting me ride my bike or walk from Nova in order to keep dancing, teaching me that dreams are worth working for. Remember when the Shasta Civic Ballet Company did Sleeping Beauty at the Civic? It was during the matinee performance and the smoke machine blew up and grease went all over the floor. Everyone was slipping and falling. I was Puss in Boots, and I remembered I had that big mask on and couldn't see a darn thing. I also remember there was one ballet recital when I was a spider in a black tutu. Here's the beginning of my love of tutus. I fell on my butt during the performance, but you just said how quickly I got up and that nobody noticed. That it took courage to keep going, always giving us positive feedback. You gave me a love of theater, letting me be an Annie Get Your Gun, the Me Nobody Knows, letting me having singing lessons for my audition, though it didn't help any. I'm a dancer, not a singer. I wouldn't have met Laura if it wasn't for Annie Get Your Gun. And speaking of Laura, I appreciate your effort to separate us, to try and keep what you thought at the time was a bad influence away from me. Though you always said it's the combination of the two that gets you into trouble. But more, thank you for realizing when it was time to let that notion go and let me take responsibility for myself. The fact that you have been like a second mom to Laura and accepted her in spite of our foibles of younger days. Now she gets the pleasure of having a teenage daughter. Payback. We had wonderful vacations. Our annual migration to Patrick's Point, now Sumid, picking up the Prowler trailer in Eureka and then driving to Abalone Point Campground. You would always have to direct Dad back into the campsite, always a tense moment. Hiking the Rim Trail, going to Wedding Rock, and down to Agate Beach. I remember staying at George's cabin up at Diamond Lake, almost getting caught on the lake in a storm, feeding the chipmunks. Going to Wisconsin every couple of summers and up to Aunt Bobby's cabin, Door County, sitting around the table hearing Tommy stories about Aunt Madeline and Aunt Bobby, how many of the stories revolved around potty humor. The time Aunt Bobby sat on the painted toilet seat, and when Aunt Madeline heard the water dripping in the sink and thought she was still peeing for half an hour. I remember there was a lot of laughter. There were the fish boils and the place I got my Indian doll. I remember when we went to the dinosaur park and I was the first one to spot the dinosaurs. I remember when I broke my front tooth, when I fell off the bench. It seemed like the world would never be the same. All I could say was, I want my mommy. And then all those years of dental and orthodontic appointments. At least you got a toy at Dr. Hunter's office. I have to take Valium today. I guess it's the same concept, something to look forward to. Something else I've inherited from you is a love of holidays and rituals. I have so many fond memories of our different holidays. St. Patrick's Day, wearing green and having corned beef and cabbage for dinner. Easter, making sequin eggs for the Easter egg tree, taking the pastry bunnies, egg hunts, egg fights, and finally the Easter basket filled with candy. There is always one special egg, maybe a sugar peekaboo egg with the holes on each end and a little sugar scene inside, or better yet, a C's solid fudge egg with nuts. Thanksgiving, always inviting folks who didn't have somewhere to be. Louise and Aubert, the Wards, teaching that Thanksgiving was about sharing our blessings, having a wonderful dinner. Growing up, we went to Aunt Jackie's in Mill Valley. The kids would always put on a show for the adults. The next day, we would go into San Francisco to see the City of Paris tree and to pick out our annual Christmas ornament from Blum's. Christmas, the Advent calendar and Advent wreath, learning the fun of anticipation. All of our decorations, the stockings made by Grandma, getting up the village in the living room window, getting the tree up, always a few Russian curses under Dad's breath, the Christmas lights on the outside of the house, baking all the various Christmas cookies, going visiting on Christmas Day, and of course the flaming plum pudding on Christmas night. I remember the Christmas I got my roller skates, what I really, really wanted and didn't think I would get. Experience the joy of getting what you want, learning that wishes do come true. Birthdays were always special. You got to pick whatever you wanted for dinner on your special day. We got to have a birthday party every other year since we couldn't afford them every year, which made them all the more special. I remember we had one of Grandma's party game books from the 50s, and I would scour it for ideas. I was lucky that birthday fell right at the beginning of duck hunting season so that I could have slumber parties while Dad was gone. I remember when we set up a haunted house in the garage, lights out, reaching into a bowl of worms, cold spaghetti, and eyeballs, peeled grapes. It was so fun to celebrate your 70th birthday when I whisked you off to that bed and breakfast in Sacramento, going to see The King and I, almost running out of gas on the back roads. Got a few more, 2 more pages. Remember the New Year's Eve when we all made paper hats out of construction paper and danced until midnight? Then Dad and Mike shot off the shotgun. We went around banging pots and pans and shouting, "Happy New Year." That was one of my favorite New Year's Eve. Better than Bill's first New Year's Eve where we were all so sick we couldn't get out of bed. "You guys really know how to party," was his comment. You stressed education while we were growing up. You made us kids do our homework. We always knew that we would go to college. In fact, we didn't know there was a choice. It was always high school and then college, which I now so appreciate. As I grew older, you were still there, helping me with my college application. I think you wrote my biography. I don't know if that's true. And financial aid forms, all the care packages you sent, the tunnel of fudge, which was famous in the dorms. People anticipated my birthday package, waiting for the goodies. You have been there for me as an adult as well. So many times we have stayed up till 3 a.m. talking when I come for a visit. I watched you blossom after we kids left. For the first time, being able to concentrate on yourself. How you took dance classes at the college, joined Critique, Renew, and Writers Forum. At a time when many marriages fall or drift apart, you and Dad had a rekindling of romance. The fact that you have put up with Dad for almost 50 years. What a lesson in patience that has been, that you have lived and loved in spite of your differences. The older you get, the more you stand up for yourself. And yes, you should go on that Vienna opera tour, no matter what it costs. And she did. That was a dream she made happen. I remember the week we spent in Wisconsin with Grandma after Grandpa died. It was a special week, sad and intense. I was glad I could share it with you. Another thing I admire is how you honor Grandma, both in memory and when she was alive, how you sacrificed your own retirement to care for her. I remember when she would say, "Sue never comes to see me," when you were visiting her every day. You said, "If I can give her some pleasure and relief for the 15 minutes that I am there, then it is worth it. And if she doesn't remember half an hour later, at least I gave her that 15 minutes." A love of words is another family trait. I admire how you continue to write, express yourself, and pursue being published. How painstaking you are with your wordsmithing and your rewrites. How you chronicle the family history. How you hold the family together. Your weekly email update is such a pleasure to get. It keeps me in the know about what is going on in everyone's daily life. I like coming home to Reading and seeing your garden, how you have created such beauty and surrounded yourself with it. The joy you got from watching your flowers bloom, your pride in them. My love of reading also comes from you. I love that we have the same taste in reading and can share book recommendations. I'm glad that we're both in book clubs and can share and compare what the different people think. I admire that you stand up for what you believe in, that you were always involved in church or on the planning commission. I grew up knowing that my mom could write an effective letter, like the one to the president of United Airlines when they raised the price of the tickets, and you wrote him, and then he personally called you and gave you the original rate or a free ticket or some such things. And that's true. Boy, things have changed a bit with the airlines. So in closing, Mom, I think I have gone on long enough. You are the greatest. You have given and taught me so much, shown me by your example patience, strength, quiet happiness, internal joy, generosity, and compassion. You have taught me how to grow older with grace, except when it comes to stepping off of curbs or over gravestones. I hope you have enjoyed these memories as much as I have. Thank you for everything. You are a truly amazing woman. 75 years well lived. Love, Julie, as I was then. And so as I reliving those memories, I am who I am today because of my mother and the lessons that she taught me. And I love you so much, Mom. She's with me every day. So this is Juju, unfiltered, unscripted, unedited. Lead with love like my mother did. Peace.